Hello, this is Anthony Manning, and welcome to My Journey to Kent. My traveller this time is Amitesh Das from India, who is studying film with us and who is also the station director for KTV, Kent's student-led TV station. So thanks for joining us today, Amitesh.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for taking us on your journey to Kent today. I'd like to ask you first the question, where do you consider home?
Right. So being in the UK for the past 5 years, I guess this is home to me. It's almost become like a second home as well. But home is, I guess, still it's supposed to be my hometown where I've spent most of my life, Mumbai. It's where I grew up. It's where I've had my first phone. It's where I've had my first school. It's where I've had my first college. It's all there. It's all in India. It's all in Mumbai. So I think, yeah, that would still be my first home.
It's interesting that you refer to your home being where you had your first phone. That's the first thing you said.
Yeah, I mean, considering how phones are so important, and I remember that getting my first phone was such a big deal that I think that's a memorable first, because I mean, apart from first schools and all of that, everybody has first schools, and first school didn't really seem like much of a deal, and neither I can remember anything from my first school. I do remember when my first phone was quite small and I was too excited.
So that leads us into what you're studying at Kent and what inspired you to study that subject.
I study film, single honours at the University of Kent. I've been studying it since 2018 and will finish in 2021. So I'm in my final year. And I guess the reason why I got inspired to study the subject was because of my disdain for everything else. I knew I didn't want to deal with numbers and figures for 3 years. I knew that I didn't want to do any science for 3 years. Even though I was okay at it, I just chose that that's too boring for me. And I thought, well, I like video because I'd taken media studies and I'd interned at news channels and media agencies and things like that. So I was always kind of fascinated with video, and I liked watching films. So I mean, I thought, well, why not just spend 3 years watching films and then get a professional degree at the end of it? So I guess that's that idea itself kind of inspired me, and that's why I'm studying film.
Right, and you mentioned that you interned in news agencies and in the media.
Yeah.
How was that influential in your decision making for your career?
I guess the news channel came after I'd already chosen film, but but I have interned like previously with my brother's creative agency. He's into videography himself. So not only have I seen him always work, I've also kind of dealt with cameras and stuff like that myself, which almost made me kind of more inclined to go into video because I'd already done and I've made video before. So kind of getting into studying film and getting into making film even, both of those things kind of inclined me to study film at Kent as well.
Brilliant. That's great. So what led you to the University of Kent in particular? Because of course, as a student, you have lots of choice.
Yeah, and the choice is quite overwhelming, actually. The reason why Kent happened was because I wanted to be close to London, because I knew that the creative hub is there. All my kind of any contacts that I have built are there. And I wanted to be able to travel between the two places in a short amount of time. So I knew that whatever university I was going to pick, it had to be close to London or in London. Saying that, the reason why I decided to go outside was because I was in London for 2 years. I did my secondary schooling here from 2016 to 2018. I decided I'm going to spend the rest of my life in London anyway. So I might as well spend 3 years of my life in the countryside somewhere else. So then I started researching universities based on that. Kent was, I think, third highest and is now kind of retained that position in the top 10 for film, which almost made me go, well, it's a no-brainer. I have to pick Kent. Then there's also like a lot of extracurricular stuff that Kent has. For example, there's KTV, or Kent Television, which I was very inclined by. You know, they have their own studio, and they have their own editing facilities, and they have their own film festival. And those things also kind of factored into the choice. I mean, now I am the station manager of KTV after 3 years. So it just goes to show that the amount of experience that I'll take back from Kent just kind of shows how good this place is. And I'm glad I made that choice to come to Kent, because I've not only got a lot of academic experience from one of the best academic film schools in the country, I've also got practical experience from an award-winning student media television society.
Can you tell us what kind of things you've done through KTV, through the manager?
Yeah, so my role is essentially managing the day-to-day operations. Because we have a big studio, we have external clients, I get to almost ensure that our members are getting the value for their cash, by organizing various activities, liaising with external companies to train us, to cultivate our studios, to invest in us, just so that we can give back to the members. So through KTV, I've done everything from learning how to plan and direct my own show to learning how to be extremely organized with everything I do. So it's a whole bunch of technical skills with video editing and things like that, to more soft skills like just time management and leadership and team project management and things like that.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that with us. So we've been talking about your experiences in your education and in your work experience as if they're a journey. So I wonder what you would say if I asked you what your essential 3 items are to pack in your luggage.
Yeah, so the 3 things that I always pack in my luggage or in my bag, or pretty much I carry all the time with me, is my trusty phone, because I can't leave the house without that. It has to be my laptop, because I do everything on it. I've had the same laptop for 5 years, and it's very tried and tested. It's amazing. And the final thing is my charger for the laptop and the phone. There's always a charger for my phone in my bag, and there's always a charger for the laptop, which is why I look for plug points wherever I go. If there's no plug point, I will not study in that space. So,
okay, so that's very practical. But what about life skills? If we think more metaphorically, what would you bring with you on a journey to survive that experience?
I would definitely bring hard work wherever I go. Because that's a quality which has got me so far in life. So that's definitely one. I would definitely bring patience with me, because I realize that if I'm not patient with my craft, whether it's filmmaking or otherwise, if I'm not patient with what I do, the frustration that comes with not getting it right the first time is a bit of a problem. So it's just, if I just go through it and let time do its thing, it'll work out.
And so my next question is, what would you say is the biggest life lesson that you've learnt along the way?
Yeah, the biggest life lesson I have learned, and this is very personal, is that I never tend to just get things like that. It's always taken me a bit of time to understand and to kind of just work through it in my own head and then do it. I'm not very talented in that sense of I can just, get something, but that's not a bad thing. And I've learned how to accept that. Instead, I now know that if I can kind of work at it and continue working at it, I will eventually get it, and I'll be at par with a person who's just got it like that. Maybe even more, because I have spent time learning, deliberating, thinking about that very thing. So I guess that's the one life lesson I've learned, is that I don't get it right the first time always, and that's okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. So slow and surely wins the race in a way. Brilliant. And what advice would you give to students who are following in your footsteps?
The one kind of biggest piece of advice I can give is use university to its fullest. And as hard as it might be for many students, try to look beyond your course. The course is ultimately the most important. It's what you're paying for. It's everything that you need to get in order to do the best. But that's not the only thing. If it weren't for this situation, and all I would be doing is my course, I wouldn't have learned how to cook, or I wouldn't have learned how to make new friends, or I wouldn't have learned that actually I'm really good at A thing or B thing or web design, which is something that I started just randomly because I had time. I wouldn't have joined KTV if it were only my course that I were doing 24/7. So I think while it's really important to do your course, the biggest advice I can give is that do other things and just try everything out in these 3 years. It's the perfect buffer between school and work, where in work you'll have to do what other people tell you to do for some time anyway, and in school you're anyways having to do what other people are doing. So this time is your own. Figure yourself out and do other stuff. Do anything, just randomly, just dance if you've never even done it, you hate it, just dance and go for a dance class. There's plenty of societies. I mean, I'm horrible at it, but you might be great. Yeah, that's my advice.
Brilliant. And that's great advice, I think. So experiment with new opportunities and really take advantage of all the resources available to you. That's a good idea. And so you've already mentioned a little bit about your future aspirations to go back to London, but can you tell us more about what your hopes are with regard to your career or your next steps after you finish your current course? What's your next destination, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah, so my destination is either going to be in an office or it's just going to be at university back again. I've applied to plenty graduate schemes for different firms, both creative and non-creative. And if I get accepted in there, then my next destination is going to be at their office. But if not, I'm also considering doing a master's in business management to try and kind of fulfill another criteria or develop another skill set, which might be at Kent as well, because there's an amazing business school here and I get the alum discount. Also might be somewhere else. I don't know as of yet, it's too early to tell, but yeah, it's either back at university or at the workplace.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your journey to Kent and beyond with us. Amitesh, great to talk to you today and I wish you luck with your next steps. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.